Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on our 29th of hopefully many episodes of Bard Advice, a D&D slash TTRPG slash life advice podcast where I, Charles Chaz Yazik, the DM, the Bard, however you may know me, do my best to answer your questions. Glad to see that you made it to Alive. Hello, everyone, all the old friends. Thank you again for joining us. We are going to have a good episode this evening. I had a shoot earlier this afternoon for an episode that will air on Sunday that's gonna be funny, so buckle up your funny helmets. At the top of the show, we like to remind everyone to please send your questions to bardadvice@gmail.com. I don't know where the email is. It's not populating on the screen, but that's fine. It's bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. Please send questions. And on that note, we are going to be doing guests soon. And if you have questions for cast members, notably Sarah/Melissa, as well as Lance/Jay, and Waylon/Kyle, or Rigsby, as I call him. I don't know what order they're going to be on in, and I don't know when they're going to be coming on, but they will be coming on soon. So, that's to say, send questions to bardadvice@gmail.com. Please do so. We also like to, at the beginning, remind, or rather thank everyone, again, specifically our patrons, members, super chatters, of course, any of the viewers. Please like, comment, rate, review, share. You know somebody that needs a D&D podcast? Probably. You probably know somebody that's like, man, you know what I need is a D&D podcast. Bard Advice, baby. We're almost 30 episodes in, and we're keeping going. So, thank you, everybody, for joining, and send questions in for the guests. This week for Art Corner, I just wanted to briefly touch on what I think has been pretty fantastic cinema, at least of these episodes that I've seen. Black Mirror on Netflix, while I'm not typically a promoter or enjoyer of the show as a whole, I do think that there have been some really good episodes over the years, and lately, these new season episodes have been really good. I've really only seen these two, but the first one being Joan is Awful with Annie Murphy, who, of course, is hilarious from Schitt's Creek, and Salma Hayek, the infamous. The other episode is with Josh Hartnett and Aaron Paul, and I believe that her name is Kate Mara. I'm like 90% sure on that. It's called Beyond the Sea. It's really cool. Really interesting stuff. I would recommend anybody that has Netflix or watches or plans on watching it, go ahead and watch it. It's good stuff. Justin also today told me that the episode after Beyond the Sea is good as well. So just keep on keeping on. Watch that stuff. I recommend it. It's good. Did we get a Bard Advice Discord server set up? We did not. Well, I think technically I have it set up, but I'm not ready to do any of that sharing and stuff until I organize it. So maybe next week. Don't quote me on that. You watched the first few seasons. They were quite good. They're a much more twisted version of the Twilight Zone. Yeah, they kind of are like a modern Twilight Zone. By the way, on that note, if anybody didn't know, because it was only, I think, within the last year that I even discovered this. I'm really bad at noticing stuff. But in case anyone didn't already know, it might seem obvious to some, but maybe not to others. The reason it's called Black Mirror is that that's what the screens are, right? The phone, the television, and the computer monitor, when they're off, they are black, but they are mirrored, so you can see your reflection. So that's what Black Mirror means. And it's a cool show. I highly recommend it. So go check it out if you've got Netflix. All right. So we do have some questions this week. We're going to go through, it looks like I've got 5 questions and a follow-up. And then we're going to do some chat. because I learned some cool stuff this week that we can talk about. But let's get into it. Starting with the first question, according to my names, is from the handle of which is just Unknown Valor. Unknown Valor asks, my DM is wondering how to handle the afterlife for people that refuse to worship any god in Forgotten Realms. I remember back in the day the souls of the faithless would be absorbed into some wall in dead god's domain. How do you handle death for players that give gods the middle finger? Well, thank you for the question. I've not really ever experienced that, or at least to a degree where it ever came up. But I did make a note to myself about this question. Initially, I would say, it depends on the type of player. Perhaps the DM could, if it's that big of a thing, perhaps the DM could customize their own little afterlife based on that particular player. Based on their actions in the campaign, etc. The other thing that I noted, which I thought would be a pretty cool way to do it, and an interesting way to do it, is to leave it to the gods of the rest of the players in the party. So that would be kind of cool. Like, there's a script that I have for this somewhere, and maybe it'll see the light of day as a sketch one day, but I think that that's really funny. If the other gods of the players in the party were kind of tuned in to this player that they had in their party that was godless, maybe you leave it up to them. Maybe the paladin's god takes over and is like, all right, this is what we're going to be. This is how it's going to go. You're going into this afterlife because my god said so. I've always destroyed character sheets of characters who've died. Never did anything with the afterlife. Yeah, it is interesting. It seems like it would be like epic level stuff too. Flynn says, I think if pressed, I just have a deity that most aligns with the character in question, grab the soul and pull them into the afterlife, assuming they didn't piss off that specific deity. That's true. A trickster god take an interest in the specific character. Yeah, I was thinking that too. So, as the DM, you obviously are kind of the god of your own universe in that sense, so you have a bit of control as to that kind of stuff. Who's to say that any number of gods didn't get wind of this particular player, this particular character's exploits, and recognizing and realizing that they don't worship a god? That would be fun. Just have somebody mess with them. But I think that the short answer is, and the answer to the whole question is, I think that personalization in that is key. And whether that's done with the character specifically, or whether that's done with using gods of the other players, or even other gods completely that are maybe not even related to what's going on. They get sent to limbo set in Chuck E. Cheese. You don't believe in me? He sets up endless pranks to keep himself entertained. Like Gabriel in Supernatural. Yeah, I could see that for sure. But, I mean, if it's going to be a thing that's a thing, that's the way that I would do it. I think the more personalized you can do it, or throw them into the back rooms. Yeah, that's true, too. It doesn't even have to necessarily be with a god. You could just put them into some terrible limbo place that you could just, put them in a labyrinth. Put them in a never-ending eternal labyrinth with infinite Minotaurs. Infinite Minotaurs would be a really cool metal band name. Instant reincarnation as a baby or an animal, not as the spell. Oh, that would be interesting. Or maybe like instant reincarnation just as any random character. Who's to say that you're reincarnated as a baby? Perhaps your soul reincarnates into like an 80-year-old woman. And then now you've got to deal with that. That could be kind of funny. Just like swap souls around. That'd be fun. Well, I hope that gives you an answer, Unknown Valor. I appreciate the question. We will keep moving on because I wanted to also talk about this evening, just on this podcast episode in general tonight, wherever you are, whenever it is. This question is from Jen. And Jen asks, in a post-OGL disaster world, what are your thoughts on the ORC? Thank you. So, for anyone who doesn't know, thank you for the question, Jen. The ORC is Paizo's answer to the OGL. And there was an article published about this a couple of days ago on, I believe, PC Gamer. So I thought that we could read through it together. I read through it a little bit myself already, but I thought that you could join me on that journey. So let's talk about it. Creators Pathfinder released their own version of D&D's OGL, could have a huge impact. So it breaks down the OGL controversy. We know what happened with that. We were there. So it talks about the ORC. So here's the stuff about the ORC license. So rather than being tied to a specific system, the ORC license is intended to work for any RPG. Once a publisher releases their game under the license, its systems and mechanics are then covered, allowing other creators to use those elements in their own work without fear of any legal issues. It also explicitly works in perpetuity. In other words, something is released under the license, it's covered by it forever. That's a pretty direct rebuttal to WotC's attempted OGL changes, which were widely criticized. Yeah, we know that. The license itself, to cement that further, the license itself is not owned by Paizo. It's been released in the public domain, meaning that any company is free to use it, but no company, present or future, has any direct control of it. Even if Paizo completely changed its intentions overnight by design, the genie cannot be put back into the bottle. So there's a couple of things with this. For one, I think that it's incredibly bold of Paizo to do. And I think that it is the perfect time to do it. If you were going to create something like that and stand by it and put it out there, I think that it's a bold move, and I think that it's a really smart move, because pretty soon here, we're going to be into a new world of digital VR, AR experience when it comes to D&D. And whether that's just visual or it's actually, people playing VR and feeling like they're there in some sort of a Diablo-type game. That is all to say that what I think is going to be really important are the details in both the stories and adventures that are available, and the customization, obviously, but also I think that with AI in general and just technology in general and where it's going with entertainment specifically, I think that it's going to become a lot more of a curation thing than a creation thing. So when it comes to like organizing whatever the thing is, I think it's going to be a lot more of trolling through and curating than it is going to be outright creating. And as a result, I think the best things will rise to the top. So I think this is really smart of Paizo to do now, because they're doing essentially what WotC did in the 90s with the original OGL. They're throwing down this gauntlet that says, like, hey, look, we got all this cool stuff, and y'all are all free to use it and make money off of it. And we don't even own it. They've even taken it a step further than the original OGL in saying that, like, we're wiping our hands of this in terms of ownership. This belongs to the TTRPG world. I think that's a really big, cool thing that they're doing. Let's read a little bit more about it. So, open licensing makes games rules free for others to use. Typically, licenses only cover rules. They don't give access to a game setting or characters. Usually, games with open licenses will release an SRD. It's often argued that a game's rules are not copyrightable anyway. There's legal precedent for that. The possible impact. Let me close this ad. So what are the actual effects of the ORC likely to be? The concept here is entirely new. Publishers have created their own individual licenses specific to their products over the years, or released their games under a Creative Commons license. Obviously, D&D is the main example. Blah, blah, blah. Landmark indie RPG Apocalypse World's equivalent of a license is a fairly vague online policy statement, but it was enough to spawn a huge and still growing range of Powered by the Apocalypse games, each of which has published mechanics in new directions and into new genres. Yeah. I think I'll also, too, echo sentiment that we've already said back when we talked about the OGL all those episodes ago, back when it was going off earlier this year. We're entering, I think, a brave new world in terms of TTRPG content and games. And since that thing happened, I think that a lot of people, obviously, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people have just been like, nah, I'm out. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm going to, and I was talking about that with Jay this afternoon, actually. We're talking about the next time, if we want to play a game again. And, for me, it's such like a capitalist quote to say, but like, I don't want to play unless I can monetize it. Only because I only have so much time, and I've got a lot of irons in the fire. I'm working on my album right now. So if I'm playing D&D, which I want to do, it'd be great and fun to just play just for fun, but I would like to monetize it. That said, we've talked before about wanting to do a 3-5 thing, but we might break away from it completely and just do something with Pathfinder. Pathfinder 2, maybe. I don't know. Thinking about it. If I can make something work out, then we can do that. But so there's not too much left in this article. This person says, don't expect the ORC license to be met with much resistance. Well, of course not. And apart from everything else, it represents a banner of WotC's competitors, large and small, to rally around. Yeah, no doubt. That too, because Paizo, one of the reasons this is such a smart move is that Paizo recognizes that it's way bigger than the game. WotC can't recognize that because it's their game. But Paizo, they recognize the power in community and the power in working together, I guess. That's not really the best way to put it. Collaboration, I guess, is a good word. There's incredible value in that, especially with something that's this complex and has as many moving parts as any kind of TTRPG. So overall, I think it's a really good idea. I think it's going to spawn a lot of cool stuff. Maybe I'll make some stuff using it. Who knows? I might just make myself a whole game using the ORC. But we'll see some of the quotes here. Oh, yeah, glad you caught a live stream as well. Thank you for joining us, Irish Android. That's a cool name. Never run a Pathfinder. I've played Pathfinder, and I discovered that Pathfinder, at least the original, was just like 3.75. It was just like a better version of, like, they just tweaked 3.5 and fixed the issues with it. A lot of good RPGs to choose from. I'm done with D&D and WotC for sure. Yeah. There's all kinds of good stuff. There's that Sidewinder we did a one-shot of one time. I'd like to do a whole campaign with that. Like a Wild West campaign. That would be fun as hell. Or a Cyberpunk, or maybe even one of those Apocalypse games. I really don't know anything about those. They might be worth checking out. But that's to say that I think that it's wise of Paizo to do. I think that it might allow for them to really up the valuation of their company as a whole for now and for the future, because WotC seems to be even more and more closed off. And again, I don't know what one is going to look like, but I have a feeling it's going to look like, I have a feeling Wizards is going to start being like Blizzard. They're just going to start like outright, just like saying the quiet part out loud when it comes to like, listen, we're just going to do whatever you want and you're going to like that and you're just going to deal with it. So I don't know. Pathfinder 1E is almost exclusively what you do. Yeah. I'd like to try out Pathfinder 2 because I actually have not played Pathfinder 2 and I've heard that it's better. But we'll see. Thank you for the question, Jen. We did speak about it for a bit, and I'm glad because I wanted to talk about it. I didn't know too much about it, and that gives us a little bit more answers as to what it is and what we can look forward to as the TTRPG community. People forget Critical Role got their start bringing their Pathfinder campaign over to 5e. Whoa, really? I didn't even know that. Oh. Man, the amount of information that I just learned from reading that sentence. I feel like the Zach Galifianakis math equation meme. That makes so much sense. Okay, let's keep moving on. The next question that we have is from Jeff. And Jeff asks, I had a question that may or may not be easy to answer. We'll see. I played D&D back when I was a teen, AD&D, if that gives you an idea on how long ago. Cool. And my youngest now plays 5e with friends of hers. They have asked on occasion if I'd like to play. How hard would it be to switch gears in playing 5e when you're used to AD&D and being 50 plus? Well, thank you for the question, Jeff. First of all, I'd just like to say, the fact that your daughter has invited you to play is a really cool thing that probably not a lot of dads get. So that's number one. I think that's really, really cool. And I think that you should see it as like a really great opportunity for some cool quality dad-daughter time. In terms of the mechanics and actually playing, I think that you would be surprised at how streamlined 5e is. If you've never really looked at it or built a character with it, it is incredibly straightforward, and this is my opinion on it. I think that Wizards released 3rd edition and then 3.5. People have their opinions about it. It's my favorite edition. I really love 3.5. It did change from what I understand, because from what I know rudimentarily about OD&D and AD&D is that it's a much different system. Things were very different. 3 was almost a completely new tabletop RPG from what I understand. All of that's to say, I think that with 4th edition, we don't talk about 4th edition. That's like Bruno. We don't talk about that. But we talk about it to say that 4th edition sucked. So with 5e, what my personal belief is that through online forums, homebrew pages, the SRD stuff that we were using online in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, they looked at that stuff and found what people really liked and then just streamlined that into the base classes. So I've always said, like, you could build a 10th level character in 5e with one book that would have the capability and power of something that would have taken you 7 books to build in 3.5. And it's not so much that it's more powerful, because you could always build that if you wanted to. It's just easier to do the cooler stuff these days. So personally, I think that you should totally do it. I'm seeing people in the chat say it's really easy. It's super new player friendly, because that's the thing. Like 4 was so bad, Wizards knew that they had to build it in such a way that it was appealing to not only existing players, but new players. And of course, stuff like Critical Role and Stranger Things was a huge help in boosting D&D's popularity. And then lately, we've got the movie and stuff. So there's obviously just more eyes on the hobby in general. But I think that with 5e, what they did is they got all of their best stuff together. They got it all in a pile. They figured out what people liked the most. And then they did their best to release that with 5th edition. So, for example, spellcasters are way more viable low level than they used to be in earlier versions of the game. And I'm of the belief that Wizards did that on purpose to incentivize people to play casters, to make it a little bit easier, to make them a little bit more viable in combat, at least early on. I mean, the Bard is a great example of that. Like, Bard 3.5 is pretty support. I mean, depending on your build, you can do stuff, but it's pretty much support. And in 5e, if you wanted to just run a Bard as somebody who's doing damage, that's a viable option. So I couldn't recommend you give it a try more. I think that you will be surprised at how easy it is, because I kind of felt that way the first time I played 5e. I felt a little intimidated it being a new system and it being so far apart from my last edition that I even played, because I never really even played 4. But very quickly I was like, oh, okay, it's just like streamlined. It's like a McDonald's versus like Bill's hamburgers, you know? It's just, it gets you there faster. So I think you'll be fine. And again, I think it's a really great opportunity for you to spend time with your daughter. What a cool thing for her to invite you to play. And, you know, like I said, I don't think many, geez, I imagine that there's tons of dads out there that are just like racking their brains with like ways that they come up with ways to bond with their daughter, and your daughter's asking for it. So hop in, man. Enjoy it. Have some fun. Make a cool character. It'll be easy. You'll be totally fine. Besides, like, they'll be understanding of the fact that you're new. They're not going to like, you know, you'll be fine. It's really not that big of a thing. I do like some of 5e's ideas, though. Subclasses are cool, and I like 5e cantrips being an actually sustainable damage source for casters. Yeah, some cantrips are a little out of control. Looking at you, Eldritch Blast. But I do agree with that. I do like that cantrips are actually like kind of viable spells, because they were very kind of throwaway. Although there was something about those type of throwaway cantrips that could be used for really cool stuff. Really want to play 5e. 2e terrifies me. Negative AC. Yeah, that is scary. Oh, you want to play 3-5. 3-5's really good. It's my favorite. Pathfinder does feel like I'm waiting on fine dining service. 5e is totally fast food. Oh, yeah, that's true. Because Pathfinder, if Pathfinder 2 is anything like Pathfinder 1, I've not really given it a full look. Yeah, it's pretty dense. There's a lot going on in there. Feel you need to homebrew a ranger subclass. Man, poor rangers. Maybe they just need a good character, you know? Maybe we just need a story about a cool story about a ranger, and then that we could get some rangers some more love in the games. Well, thank you for the question, Jeff. Like I said, go forth, roll dice, have fun, enjoy time with your daughter. Appreciate the question. The next question that we have, based on the list here, is from a Chris. This is a K-R-I-S, Chris. Chris asks, who do you consider to be your biggest creative influences or inspirations, past or present? Oh, okay. So I just kind of hurriedly started making a list earlier this afternoon, and one just came to my mind just now that I'm going to write down, and that's Weird Al. I'd have to say Weird Al was pretty instrumental in me wanting to be an entertainer. Maybe not so much in wanting to be, but in helping me realize I could be. Because, you know, it's Weird Al. He's a total goofball. But I resonated with him because I'm a total goofball. And it was a moment for me in youth listening to his stuff that was like, oh, you can just be a weirdo. You don't have to be like a certain type of way. At least when it comes to having a career in entertainment or the arts, right? You don't have to be like Mr. Cool or a certain type of way. You can afford to, I guess, moreover than anything, be yourself, and that's okay. I don't want to make this all about Weird Al, though, because he's just one I thought of. So I made a list of a bunch of other ones we'll just run through. George Carlin, Kesha, RZA, Tupac, Jack Johnson, Eminem, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Andre 3000, Toby Wigway, Earth Gang. Some of this isn't even music. J.M.W. Turner, Van Gogh, Wes Anderson, Jordan Peele, Stanley Kubrick, Alanis Morissette, Matchbox 20. Probably tons more that I didn't name Tim Robinson lately, just because I think that stuff's hilarious. Let's see some of the inspirations people are putting down in chat. Lovecraft, Vonnegut, Palahniuk, Chris Farley. Oh, man, yeah. Rodney Dangerfield. Oh, I didn't say Rodney. He doesn't get any respect. That's fine. He's on my wall. That's a no-brainer for me with Rodney. Einstein, maybe. Only, again, inspirational in seeing someone that's kind of a goober have success. That stuff was important for me. Farley's another great example of that, actually. Christopher Walken. Stephen King, maybe, as a writer. Yeah, I didn't really have any writers on that list, but I'd say King. And I don't know. I think Otis Redding comes to mind. A lot of that stuff. R.A. Salvatore, is it Salvatore or Salvatore? Either way, I never really read a lot of his stuff. Drizzt is the reason some players make Rangers. Terry Pratchett and Steven Erikson. Jim Butcher. There's a lot of great stuff. And I also just like stuff that I watch on YouTube too. Other YouTubers are inspirational to me, and people on TikTok and stuff. Some of the, oh man, those girls on TikTok that their songs been going so crazy. I'm about to sin again. And she says, I'm made of sugar, spice, Kaneka, lun, and cinnamon. That's hair, by the way, anyone who wonders. Those girls are crazy talented. They've been all over TikTok lately. It was right for the audience, agreed. Easy Money or Throwback Thursday movie. Or Back to School, I think, is my favorite of his. He's a real weird guy. But yeah, I'd say any of those artists are ones that either today or in my past were really inspirational. You know, I was a big Korn fan when I was a kid, actually. Kind of fell off of them as I got out of high school, but definitely for a big period, I was a big Korn fan, Slipknot. And then there was that period there where I was really into like emo and screamo stuff. Census Fail, I guess you could say, was relatively instrumental in inspiration for stuff. I remember I sat down one afternoon and just learned the Let It Enfold You album. I just played it and then just plucked it out until I learned how to play it on the guitar. Mudvayne. Yeah, I remember Mudvayne too. Whoa, does anybody remember CD Warehouse? Is that still a thing? Did that company just completely collapse? I remember it when I was a kid. What a cool place. For anybody who doesn't know, CD Warehouse was this place that kind of operated like, well, you could buy new music there, but you could also like take old CDs back there, and then they would give you money and or store credit for other CDs. Green Day, you know Green Day? Nirvana, yeah, for sure. Oh, and the Chili Peppers. I feel bad for leaving them out. Green Day was, man, I was such a big Green Day fan for so long. And that was another one I think that I kind of just fell off of after out of high school. I was a big MXPX fan too. Smashing Pumpkins. Yeah, there's just a lot of great stuff. Victor Wooten, the bassist, comes to mind. Or any of those like really incredibly talented, you know, those guitarists like John McLaughlin and Paco de Lucia and Al Meliola. It's a lot of great stuff to listen to. Smashing Pumpkins, yeah. They Might Be Giants. Yeah, that's a throwback. Five Iron Frenzy. Oh, no. Flint was talking about Frenzy, but Five Iron Frenzy came to mind because I was a big ska fan too in high school. I was super into ska. Obviously the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, but also like Real Big Fish, Less Than Jake. I was never a really big Streetlight Manifesto fan. Eh. You can keep them. I know a lot of people probably think that's sacrilege because, like, people are huge Streetlight Manifesto fans, but not me. Ooh, Cake is good. Ooh, and how about Beck while we're at it? Yeah. Lots of great stuff. 9 Inch Nails. Any of those are good. So thank you for the question, Chris, for the influencer question. Those are my inspirations. Some of them, probably not all, but I think I covered most of them. The next question that we have is from Brandon. And Brandon asks, Bard, I seek your counsel. After years of pretty steady games, I fear I'm suffering from D&D burnout. Any thoughts on how to take a break without falling out of the hobby completely? I appreciate any advice. Well, thank you for the question, Brandon. I might not be the best person to ask that question because I haven't played D&D in well over a year, and I, in fact, might be an example of your fear, which is that you completely fall out of the hobby in general. The note that I put was to try and stay TTRPG adjacent, or at least RPG adjacent. So this kind of falls in perfectly with what we were talking about earlier with other TTRPGs. Maybe it's a situation where you just need to play a new game. You could also consider playing other types of games, right? Whether that's like actual board games can be really fun, and also a nice kind of mental palate cleanser for TTRPGs, although it might be a little too close to the same thing. If you want to get away from that entirely, you might consider doing video games is cool, or just taking up a new hobby. I know what you mean in the sense of stepping away from it without falling out of the hobby completely, because D&D is very much, I think, a thing like, it's very much a thing that is like a lifestyle type thing, in the sense that in order to do it, you kind of have to make it a part of your schedule. And it's different than other games in that way. Because, you know, most board games or even video games, most video games, depending on the game, those matches or games are, unless they're RPGs, could be a number of minutes. But with D&D, it's like, you know that's a thing where you're going to be sitting down for several hours. And so as a result, you have to schedule that, and it becomes kind of a lifestyle thing because it's just like part of your deal. It's like on Thursdays we play D&D, whatever it is. I think staying RPG adjacent will keep you in the hobby and also might spawn some ideas for other stuff. I don't know if you're the DM or the player, and you didn't really specify, but you said, yeah, it doesn't specify whether you're the DM or not. It sounds like you might be a DM if you're getting the burnout. But because, I mean, I will say, too, that there are a lot of people out there who probably would think that you were crazy for kind of poo-pooing the idea of like, yeah, well, you know, we've been playing steady games for years, because not a lot of people get that. In fact, some people can't find games at all. So I would say to recognize the silver lining and the good thing when it comes to that, first of all, because that's a really cool thing to do. That said, it sounds like you have a group that's pretty reliable in terms of showing up if you've been playing steadily and consistently. So you might ask their opinion. Do they know that you're burning out? Probably might want to bring it up with them for sure. Whatever you do, I would address it with them and just be like, if you haven't already, just say to somebody like, hey, yeah, you know, I've been feeling kind of burnt out lately, just with D&D in general. So, been burned out with various parts of Pathfinder 1, but always gotten around that by changing up what I'm doing with the game. Change from player to GM or vice versa. Yeah, and that's actually one of the things I was going to mention and why I was asking whether you're the DM or the player, because you could just do whatever the other thing is that you're not already. So if you're a player currently, maybe you should try DMing. But more likely you're a DM. So you could just try playing. That's a change that might eliminate burnout and keep you in the hobby, is just changing your role from player to DM or vice versa. You can also stay adjacent by playing other TTRPGs like we mentioned earlier this evening. We've been talking about Pathfinder. We also briefly discussed stuff like the Sidewinder. Sidewinder Recoiled is the name of the specific one I'm thinking of, but I'm sure that there are other cool, like Western-style RPGs. There's cyberpunk RPGs. There's the D20 Modern. There's these Apocalypse books. So there's lots to choose from. Coming back from burnout is way harder than preventing it. I also try to take it out a day or two. Yes, and that's true too. So back to what we were talking about with D&D being kind of a lifestyle thing where it's a part of your schedule. It's important to schedule time that is not that as well. That is just kind of recharge time, relax time. I tend to do it with myself creatively with either games that I play, or sometimes in my free time I'll just like talk to AI. But I mean, it's good to have that kind of a mental palate cleanser just in general throughout. So give yourself some time where you're not doing D&D every week, but you're doing something that's also fun that you enjoy and is maybe relaxing. Have you tried Florida Edition? It's a new third-party setting with lots of flexibility and depth. That's going to be coming, I think, whether we partner with somebody or we produce that ourselves. I'm going to be making that. I want to build that out. I really like the idea of there being like a Florida supplement that you could just kind of plug in to wherever you needed to make it work. Stories and stuff. I live Florida Edition every day. I hear you. I do too. Oh man, today they were out. It was raining, just crazy. And there's this thing now that people do where like the faster you go, the more they tailgate you. It's happened to me more than once this week. It's getting wild down here. But those are my recommendations, Brandon. Hopefully you can glean something of value from that. But I would say to start with maybe carving out a little time for yourself that is relaxed time, that is not D&D. You could also consider just changing from player to DM or DM to player. You can change the game completely as to the type of TTRPG that you're playing, or you could change the hobby completely, but not permanently. More of a temporary change for a period of time, just to kind of cleanse your mind. Thank you very much for the super chat there, Austin, for the $10 contribution. It's very much appreciated. That helps us very much. Helps us keep the lights on here. Hey everyone, fairly new subscriber here, but I've been watching the videos on Facebook for a while, and I love every minute of the videos. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you, Austin. And on that note, I'm actually going to try to get better about reformatting and repurposing episodes that we already have on YouTube for Facebook and get back into a trend of posting there. For a long time, for the last year or so, we had a company that was working on that for us. We are no longer working with that company, so it's kind of back onto us, which is fine. I just need to get in there and figure out how all of that stuff works so that I can post what we've got on YouTube on Facebook as well for our followers there. So appreciate the contribution as well as you watching the stuff. Hope you like it. Take Florida over your state. What's your state? I don't know about that. Oh, yeah, that's right. An uncle of mine has a sticker on his back window that read, "If you can read this, you should know I'm prone to stopping suddenly for no reason." Yeah, that sounds like some stuff you might see down here. Better than that sign that with the stop, drop, and roll. So, okay, the thread thing, so I actually got it. And it's so bizarre to me. It's just so weird that it's just Twitter on Instagram. I don't understand. And then I also saw this thing that said if your IG, like if your Instagram, which I don't even use Instagram that much, to be honest. If your Instagram and your threads are connected, which I connected them when I set it up, like you can't delete your threads account without deleting your Instagram. I don't know. It seems weird. I don't know if it'll last. I don't know if it'll be a thing that totally kills Twitter, although that seems to be happening anyway. But, yeah, I don't know. I got one just to, like, we'll see. But I doubt that it's going to be any kind of life-changing thing. It just seems like they're just moving it around to a different place. Been binge watching the seasons. I'm up to season 11 at the moment. Oh, cool. Well, thank you. I hope you're enjoying them. Glad to see that. It's always nice to see somebody new that's finding us for the first time, because you kind of get to do that. You see one of them and then it's like, oh man, we got a whole bunch of these, so you can just run through them all. So hopefully you enjoy it. So we do have a follow-up that I want to get into before we do a little chat, although we've already been chatting a little bit, but that's okay. This is a follow-up from James, and I don't completely remember what episode. I think it's from like episode 18 or something. I don't remember, but let's see what the follow-up is. James says, I wanted to drop you a small update. Believe it or not, I hadn't considered finding another group. You nailed it when you said hanging out with my friends was more important than the game for me. Oh yeah, I remember this. But playing a game that is close to what I want but not quite just didn't scratch my gaming itch. The group didn't start out as a D&D group. Most of us met at Friday Night Magic several years ago and transitioned into a gaming/friend group. So dropping the game was never really an option, but adding another game totally was. It's been a while since I've played online, but I hit up Roll20 last week and just finished my first session of AD&D in almost 15 years. It sucked. Lol. That particular group/game won't work for me, but I'm crawling the message boards looking for a different one right now as I write this update. Thanks for taking my question. Keep putting out that silver audio, and I'll keep listening. Well, that's very kind of you, James. Thank you for the update. It's glad to hear. I'm glad to hear that my advice was something that was helpful for you. A lot of times I just, I dole this stuff out and say stuff, and it's just kind of like sometimes I don't even know what I'm saying until later when I listen to it. But all that's to say that I have my own moments, of course, where I'm like, what am I doing? What am I saying? Why did I say that? So it's nice to see that even if it's just a percentage of the advice that's given out, that it's doing someone somewhere some good. It's disappointing to hear that welcome, Austin. Thank you for becoming a member. Oh, cool. Now you're going to have a cool name, and you can put cool stickers, and it's direct support of the channel. We really appreciate that. But yeah, so it is kind of part of the process. Finding a new group's always rough, takes a bunch of trial and error. Flint says, yeah, agree. Finding a group in general is tough. Period, end of statement. Just across the board. And then when you couple in stuff like this, where it's like you're kind of looking for a specific type of game, but I'm glad that you're on route to finding a new game that you enjoy, and you could just play that game to hang out with your friends if you want to, just to hang out with them, or you could just hang out. You don't have to do that game. So glad to hear that they're looking for what works. Yes. So that's a thing too, and I can be that way myself, where I'll be kind of quiet about the fact that I'm not really feeling whatever's going on. And just because I feel like it's in my nature to not be a wave maker. I don't like confrontation. So I will tend to be somebody who just kind of sits and deals. I kind of was getting those vibes from that question back when you were saying that it's yeah, they don't really, I'm not really feeling it as much, but it's just because they're your friends and you want to hang out with them. And I get that on a personal level, I understand that because I've had stuff like that where it's like, I'm really only doing this to hang out with you guys. Not with D&D, but you know what I mean. So it's good to hear that you gave it a shot. Didn't work out, but hey, now you've been pointed in a direction. So hope that you can find a group that works really well for you. Rather do the surfing than making the waves. Most definitely. That's how I am. Groups of individuals in chat would make a great gaming group, and sometimes that's how you have to start. Just get to know each other before you start playing. That's true, too. Yeah, well, I mean, that's to his point. They were never even a D&D group. They were just like they were adjacent to nerd stuff, all playing Magic on Fridays. There's probably, and I know for sure there's a tremendous amount of crossover there, not just because obviously these games are both manufactured and distributed by the same company, but also because it's just the nature of, I never could get into Magic. Magic was way too overcomplicated for me. I had a cousin that attempted to teach it to me once, and he lost me at tapped on, tapped off. Like, I'm already lost. And so knowing that, I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to learn all of this stuff. Also, those kind of games like Magic and Warhammer, I know I would just go bankrupt if I really got into. Because Warhammer in particular, because it's just like minis. Magic used to be much more simple back in the day. Didn't they just release the one card to rule them all or whatever? It's like the one ring card for Magic, and then someone has it. Somebody found it, but they're keeping themselves anonymous, which I guess I don't blame them if there really only is one. But hasn't Magic just been like printing black lotuses and stuff? Like, wasn't that one of the big controversies that they just started like reprinting these old classic, like really valuable cards, and so as a result they screw the market up? Rules got more convoluted over the years. Oh well, that doesn't bode well for me wanting to learn it now. But then again, I guess neither does Hasbro's behavior as of late. Seen a few people over the years not having fun, so they just quit playing. Shame, because some of them needed to change what they were playing. Yeah. True. It does depend on what the game is, and also how it's played, because I know some people that would hate D&D, but they really love Magic. How long until the one card to rule them all gets confiscated by the patrons? Yeah, that is kind of insane that was a thing. But, you know, it was their mistake, right? That's I think what's so egregious about it. It wouldn't have been so insane if the person like stole them outright, but it was like they shipped them to him by mistake, right? The card is worth literally millions. At least one company put a $2 million bounty on it. That's so crazy. That's so crazy to me. And then what happens if they just like print 100 more of them? Yeah, he opened it in a package. That's so crazy. So it's like, so you messed up, and as a result, this person got these cards that they weren't supposed to have, and you send Pinkertons to their place? That, honestly, that was a worse look for me on Wizards than even the OGL stuff. That's some real weird stuff, because that's house cleaning stuff, you know? That goes beyond just like the general corporate greed we've all become numb to. That is stuff where it's like, oh, y'all don't even know what's going on with your distribution. This is a bigger problem than like not having your finger on the pulse of your players. Y'all don't even know what's going on in your warehouses. It seems like you might want to invest in some quality control if you've got these really valuable cards just getting shipped out in regular packages. Black border lotus petal. Never seen a black lotus. I think I had a buddy that had a black lotus. Huh. Yeah, I didn't think so either. And how funny that I didn't even really know. The only reason that I even know what they are is because of Red Dead Redemption, which is like where my mind immediately went when I read that story. I was like, whoa, really? That's so bizarre. Where are you at when you're getting those people called on you? What is this? Oh. Red Dead. Yeah, that was what I thought of originally. The One of One ring was already graded. It got a 9 if you read the news article right. They graded it what? Based off of a picture, off of a photo? How could it be a 9? Is that one of those things with cards where it's like cars, where it's like as soon as you pull it out of the package, it loses its value? Like from the time that you open it, it's already lost a point. Probably. They really don't know what's been happening in their warehouses. There have been multiple times where warehouse workers got busted for stealing valuable cars and selling them in nearby shops. Bro, that's so crazy. And that, personally, in my opinion, goes back to like not taking care of your employees. Because it's like, if that employee was taken care of, he could have his own cards. He wouldn't need to be stealing them from the warehouse that he works in. Based on the condition of the card, artwork, and other factors. To get a 10, you need to record your opening of the card. Wow. I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? You don't know what that where that card's been or what it's through or even if it's real. So I guess that stuff really matters. I'm glad that it's a thing that I never really got into because, again, I feel like it's a thing that I would go totally broke doing. I would just be obsessive about. I kind of was like that with Pokemon cards as a kid, honestly. A little bit obsessive about collecting and getting all of the cool ones. Wow. Here we are. We're already, I mean, we're looking towards the end of this. I am kind of surprised, to be honest, that this podcast has stayed entertaining and enjoyable for me. I'm hoping that it's entertaining and enjoyable for you all. And also, something that I wanted to bring up, because I mentioned it at the beginning when I said something about chat. A thing that I saw recently, what I want to start doing here, and I think it's good, is that evidently we're learning that socially, when we share good things that happen to us, or when we kind of brag about a challenge that we overcame or something, it's actually really good for helping us learn how to grow and be better people. So I would like everyone, if you're interested in participating, to, in chat, tell me the best part of your day, or maybe the best part of your week. Something that was either a challenge that you overcame or something that was really cool that happened to you. Because the science that we're learning lately is that when you do that, when you share, when you express those types of feelings or those types of things, it actually makes you better at doing that in the future. It's good for you and it helps you grow. So for me, I think something that I overcame this week was a tremendous amount of worry and anxiety about the channel and its future. And I think that through several conversations with my business partner, our agent, my wife, friends and family, my mother, I was able to kind of overcome all of those things, and I feel a lot better than I did at the beginning of the week about the future of the channel and the content that we'll be making. So that's for me something that was good. Best part of the session you played today, first one in about 3 weeks. Oh, that's cool. Your vape juice order came in, and you got 2 free bottles. Heck yeah. And you took a risk on a new flavor, and it's delicious. Going to your best friend's son's first birthday party. Oh, that's really cool. Brother and you reconciling just now. Well, that's good. Best part of your week was you only worked 2 days, and this week you got paid for 5. Whoa, nice. That's cool. It's good. I think it's good to talk about good stuff. Geez, especially in today's day and age, right, folks? Man, we're just in the middle of the apocalypse, I guess. But I think it's important to stay focused on the positive things. And I try to do that with myself. I try to remind myself frequently that there are struggles that I do not have to deal with, and I should be thankful for that. And I should also try and look for the positive in as often as I can, because it's good for our brains. 3 years ago, you were working aircraft demolition, a harsh and awful job. Today, you completed training at a new job. You're now managing a team of 30 people, all while WFH in AC. Recently got out of a reading slump. Automated import testing for a power grid. Whoa. That's cool. Well, congratulations to you all. I think that's fantastic. Great work, everyone. And something I think maybe we should include as work from home. Nice. Well, I guess I'm a WFH in AC myself, because that's what I've been doing here these last couple years, thanks to you beautiful people. And like I said, I think that that's something that we should maybe just make a part of chat every week, where we just talk about the good stuff, because it's good for you. Your wife builds aircraft. She just finished her 3-month probation. Found an app that gives audio and written at the same time for your students. Cool. Oh, yeah, dude. AI stuff for teaching. My mother-in-law is a principal, and she has been using GPT for organizational capability. I'm telling y'all, it's like a personal assistant. You can just throw stuff at it, and it'll throw it back to you. And personally, I find a tremendous amount of value in its ability to put things into structure for people like me whose brains are all over the place. Best thing that happened to me is getting fired from Walmart over a half inaccurate point. Oh, a half. Definitely be down to having an opportunity to share something good about my week on every podcast. Yeah, definitely. Well, this is one of my favorite parts of the week. For sure. This hour, I like it a lot. I even enjoy getting prepared for it, I make these cool AI art backgrounds. Look at this thing. I think it's pretty neato. And, put the questions together. I have a lot of fun doing it. I really enjoy it. And I think that if it's a thing that you enjoy and that it's a nice part of your week, then we can just have this little moment in chat where we talk about the good stuff. Still unsure on whether or not you should help AI learn. Still wary of AM scenario and or Rocco's basilisk coming true. Listen, if AI indeed is our demise, what are you going to do about it anyway? Might as well enjoy it while we can. And I think if you're an artist, or really in general anybody, you should be talking to it. So, all right, let's close things down. I don't know what happened to my email thing. Did I put it into images? Is that what's going on? Yeah, I think so. So maybe I can fix it real quick. Let's go to properties, images, and then email. Is it on there now? No, it's not there. It's very strange. I don't know what that's about. But the email is bardadvice@gmail.com. Easy way to remember it, other than bardadvice, is this, the name of the podcast. So bardadvice@gmail.com. Please send questions. Send them for other guests as well. Send them if you've got questions for Lance, Sarah, Waylon. Send them in. I will set them aside because, like I said, I don't have a specific date or scheduled time for when they will be occurring on the podcast as guests, but it will be happening. So if you have questions for them specifically, Justin's included in that, send them on over to bardadvice@gmail.com. If you want merch, you can get some at manshorts.com. And if you want to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, you can do so via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo, all of which are Yazik, Yahzick. We will be back. We will be back next week, same Bard time, same Bard channel, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, streaming on the Man Shorts YouTube channel. The audio for this podcast will be available tomorrow at Saturday at 12 p.m. noon Eastern Standard Time. I hope that everybody has a fantastic weekend and week, and we will see you next time.